Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today I will review Superman Vol.1. It was titled What Price Tomorrow, and it was written by the one and only George Perez, with art by Jesus Merino and Nicola Scott, with the first 6 issues being released between November 2011 to April of 2012. The one and only Superman, Kal-El of the planet Krypton, or Clark Kent, debuted for the world during the spring of 1938 in Action Comics number 1 by Jerry Siegel and Joseph Shuster. Being the flagship hero for DC Comics, I can see why so many new ideas were implemented for him, trying to allow anything and everything that could work for the character while still trying to please any type of reader. There were many big changes made, which will be noticed right away, but for now, it's important to mention that the New 52 Action Comics Volume 1 to 3, or Grant Morrison's run, all took place 5 to 6 years in the past, while this one was in current time, so it was always kinda tiptoeing around whatever happened over there, while still trying to make sure everything made sense. Did it though? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Issue number 1 starts off with the classic way of letting it be known that things are changing around here, when on the first page the Daily Planet is demolished while a celebration is held in the building's new gaudy location due to being bought and added to the Galaxy Broadcasting Systems umbrella, which is owned by Galaxy Incorporated, seen in Action Comics Volume 1, run by a Glenn Morgan. He's said to be gone now, but everything is now being led by a Morgan Edge, who's gotten a way better past than anything he gets here, since his creation by Jack Kirby in October 1970's Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen number 133. Other known characters are then seen, such as Lois Lane and Perry White, plus some first-timers, news anchor William McCoy and Mayor Rob Morrisroe. Superman clearly isn't happy with the Daily Planet's new direction, scowling over the old place's rubble, and not posing for photographer Jimmy Olsen and techie Miko. Superman flies across Metropolis, passing the soon-to-be Astrodome, while looking back on a tense conversation he had with Lois regarding shady things that GBS is involved with, and how could she sell herself out to the company, jumping at an opportunity to become an executive. I like how Clark could only come up with calling the whole thing a dog and pony show as the best insult, and then says that wasn't nice. Good try at least, buddy. While Superman deals with some goons in clown masks, obviously confused at what IP they're supposed to be in, Morgan is introducing a higher-up of his who will stick around on his behalf, Miss Izquierdo, and mentioning Lois is to give the call on pursuing a story featuring Big Blue. There was also one page in the middle of the issue featuring an alien blowing a special magic horn that will have massive implications later on. Just bookmark it and we'll return later. Way later. Back at the Astrodome, a kind of living flame seems to have been spotted, which quickly turns into a threat when gaining a humanoid shape, attacking Superman and killing the clown robbers in the process. A big battle across a part of the city goes down, with Lois running the show, trying to cover the story. Superman hits the flame creature with some classic super breath, while it screeches to him in gibberish. And by now, the cops are fully aware of the fight, with a Lieutenant Casey giving orders on how to handle it. Superman tries not to destroy too much, using the old Daily Planet globe as a weapon, and then tries the fly the foe into space and see what happens move, which seems to work this time and was mostly captured by Jimmy and Miko thanks to hacked cameras. The next night, as discussions at the new Daily Planet regarding a big Superman story commence, Clark goes to see Lois, where it's beyond clear that he likes her, but right now, unbeknownst to him, she is dating some random guy called Jonathan Carroll. Awkward. Issue number 2 opens with what appears to be Superman hovering near a space station looking at constellation projections regarding Krypton, and then is paid a visit by the gleeful General Sam Lane, who does the usual patronizing and antagonizing of our titular hero, this time regarding the constant threats that he seems to attract, and then questions his relations with Lois, leading into a scene from the other day where he's helping Miss Lane move into her new fancy office, talking about this, that, and other things. And here it's really seen that letterers Carlos Mangual and Rob Lay had a big task for this volume. As Clark heads out, we see reporter Kat Grant for the first time mentioning that there are homeless people in the railways. Important info for later. She debuted in The Adventures of Superman number 424, January 1987 by Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway. Back to now, General Lane gets one last passive-aggressive comment in on Superman, which only made me wish that this character spearheaded more plots. Superman returns to Metropolis, where he suddenly gets absolutely belted by an invisible attacker. This continues for the next minute or so, with him getting smashed across the city left and right, except there are hints that cameras can see what's beating the crap out of him. A busted blimp becomes part of the damage, which kind of added to the suspense as Superman can't save it right away due to the invisible attacker continuing its assault. While cameraman Olsen captures it all, and thanks to Lois telling him to do so, Superman's foe can now be seen to an extent, and he fights back so he can save the blimp. The battle quickly changes in favor of Superman now, and when cleverly using one of those electronic places that creepily records the street and plays the footage on TVs for sale in the window, he puts the fight to bed, pounding the lizard thing until it unexplainably dissolves and disappears. A short scene depicting Superman and Lois's New 52 relationship is shown, and don't worry, it changes as often as the writers here do. But anyway, lastly, I'll get back to Kat Grant's homeless issue story. One of them is seen squatting in underground railways, but suddenly becomes possessed looking with glowing red eyes, and then goes to a hospital to visit a Mr. McLaughlin, who was nearly killed in the Astrodome by the fire creature, and he wakes up from a coma equipped with red eyes as well. Issue number 3 begins with some throwbacks to Action Comics Volume 1, including some old faces like Glenn Morgan and Lieutenant Blake. Then we see some of the threats Superman has dealt with over the years, a crazy gorilla called Titano, Dr. Flesher's Iron Giant robots, and a bunch of goofs in flying gear calling themselves Sky Raiders. This is all being recollected for an upcoming Slander story William McCoy plans to run, and is presenting it to Lois and Miss Izquierdo, now blaming him for most of Metropolis's plight. Perry White is also there, who goes back to Superman number 7, December 1940, since I haven't mentioned that, and he warns McCoy to watch it since he believes that Superman is not responsible for Metropolis's problems. Along with Lois, Perry contacts Clark, who's in Smallville, Kansas, visiting his parents' graves. Those deaths are established in Action Comics Volume 1, but anyhow, he zips back to the city while Perry and Lois discuss the story Mr. Country Boy is working on with reporter Heather Kelly, who has a crush on him and is first seen with Miko and Jimmy. Next thing we know, Superman is flying along, minding his own business, when a friggin' ice tornado seems to ambush him. Lois tries to get a handle on how to report this attack, wherein Superman is pummeled for a third time by what now is a formed ice alien that appears to look female. Superman has to save a falling helicopter, but then realizes his new enemy froze over the Daily Planet plus all inside, so he gets real serious, first realizing Heather Kelly is being used as a vessel, and while fending off a huge ice storm, blasts her with his heat vision, which for some reason separates Heather from the ice being. Hey, don't ask me how. When things clear up, Miss Kelly is gone, with even Superman unsure of what happened. But we do when she's seen as a part of the ominous glowing red eye club. Issue number 4 has news outlets covering the recent ice attack and law enforcement questioning Jimmy, Miko, and Superman about the supposedly missing Heather Kelly, which includes more oddly abundant and almost forced resentment people have for Supes. I found this weird since no good morale or distrust stories were presented, so why does everyone hate him so much? I don't know, and I don't care. Things then get a bit weird when Miss Kelly is seen out of the blue being interviewed on William McCoy's show, and this coincides with Police Commissioner David Corporan coming to Superman's aid, saying that he and the mayor are close friends. While changing into Clark, he calls Lois, who has booked him for being in Smallville visiting his parents' graves, and then lying about it, which he can't seem to recollect. I guess all the beatings you took in this volume has jarred your marbles a bit, eh? As he heads to the Daily Planet while being watched by the glowing red eye people, Lois is seen chewing out Jimmy and Miko for snooping on Clark and wondering why he's been lying, but then she kind of seems to realize Clark is Superman when seeing him fly away from Smallville. More to come on that soon. Back with William and Heather, she tells her side of the ice attack right as Clark gets there, and then when pressed if Mr. Kent was with her / involved, she full out lies about everything, garnering varying reaction looks from Perry, Lois, Jimmy, and Miko. During the commercial break backstage, McCoy, now rocking a sweet rough collar, tries to confront Clark and Heather about the lying, but Clarky uses the fact that he was in Kansas to cover for himself, and literally things just cut to him in costume, saying that he's in his old apartment in Hobbs Bay, where the 3 enemies he took on are all together now, and appearing to be alien specimens speaking robotic-like. Perry and Lois are seen briefly discussing whatever the hell Clark is going through, since in this volume it's seen that he's been rather moody, which is rather ambiguous at this point still, but anywho, Superman gets triple teamed by the strange aliens. Did that sound dirty? They look to be unleashing nanobug bots that engulf Superman, and with his last words asks who created them, to which they respond, "You did, bruh." Oh yeah, there was another red glowing eye people scene, now swapped to blue for some reason. What exactly are they up to? Well, it appears that they have some kind of connection to the 3 recent Superman attackers. Issue number 5 starts on all kinds of sources, from Lieutenant Casey and Perry to Jimmy and William McCoy, reporting on whatever the hell is going on with Superman, now stuck in a crazy looking vortex. Also, Ron Troop is seen for the second time here, with him going back to The Adventures of Superman number 480, July 1991 by Jerry Ordway and Tom Grummett. Once the snowy flaming barrage ends, Superman remains present, much to the shock of all the onlookers, and seems to have saved the glowing red eye group. I guess their purpose was to beacon another attack on Superman due to their bodies getting used. Things clearly don't seem right when Superman starts talking like someone asked an AI program to give them dialogue for the character, and while the Daily Planet crew visit Heather in the hospital, our titular hero displays how simply terrifying he could be when deciding to eliminate some of his recent antagonists permanently. Dr. Flesher's robots are incinerated, same with Titano, the gorilla, which by now has garnered media attention, and finally the Sky Raider terrorists who were trying to be transferred are iced. Yikes. Next, Lois is seen bringing Jimmy in on her plan to get to the bottom of things, and as Superman continues his new untamed approach to crime fighting, Sam Lane, who has been practically salivating for this moment, calls in the K Squadron. Don't ask me who they are because we won't see them in this first volume. Superman's last target is William McCoy, who is obviously reporting on all the events, but he is grabbed and taken to the top of the Daily Planet, where we easily get the most question-inducing scene of the whole book when Superman drops McCoy. Lois yells Clark. So does this confirm she knows Mr. Kent and Superman are the same? To be continued. The Clark shout did seem to reach somewhere, as the real Superman hears it while floating around in space while nano-bug infested. Okay. Issue number 6 is the final one in this volume, opening on Supergirl Kara Zor-El saving William from going splat, but not from defecating himself. Yeesh. She had met her cousin in her solo series, which of course I will review, and claims that she's in Metropolis now to ask him about Superboy, who she met in his solo series Volume 1, which I already reviewed. Fake Superman ain't real happy to see Supergirl, giving her a vicious heat blast, and this is when Lois tunes in, watching the super cousins battle it out on the streets, and commentated on like a heavyweight boxing championship. Again, Lois seems to know that Clark is Superman, calling him by name, trying to somehow reach out, and it looks to be working when he attempts to return to normal form while in space, causing fake Superman to temporarily lose control, so Supergirl seizes the chance to fight back best she can, but to no avail. Mayor Morris Rowe is watching everything just before getting notice that the city is being evacuated because Sam Lane has called in the overused trope of nuking a location when a disaster is appearing too great. Lois is contacted by her miserable ass father next to tell her about this, but honestly, who cares? The real Superman zooms down, now back in control, grabbing his nasty doppelganger in view of Perry and Miss Izquierdo, exclaiming he is innocent of anything that's gone down recently. General Lane then calls off the bombings, and what's up with him saying, "that Kryptonian"? Talking as if you're at war and he's just another one of many, like a communist or something. Whatever. During Superman's fight with his evil twin, some context as to how nanobots are involved is seen, and it jumps back to Action Comics Volume 1 when Superman fought the Collector of Worlds on that villain's spaceship, wherein he picked up his new suit, since back then all he had was the House of L cape. No, I wasn't big on the jeans and t-shirt look. Moving on, his supersuit also picked up special nanotech from the world Jazur, which was exposed in a fight. I'm revamping old episodes, and Action Comics Volume 1 will be added to accordingly. Superman has moved his final battle to new ground with the answer as to where the other three earlier enemies also came from, having been the nanobots mimicking three of his superpowers and creating things from them. After we see that, the fighting doesn't go down long, with Big Blue reducing his nanobot copy to a scrap pile. Supergirl then shows up for a quick chat, and when back in Metropolis, Clark visits Heather where they discuss certain feelings while Lois eavesdrops outside. On the last page, the space-traveling headquarters of Stormwatch loses a piece which lands on Earth, and someone or thing gets out, heading straight to a Damonite base. Yes, Stormwatch will be reviewed in time too. Alright. The art is quite standard here, with nothing negative I can get into. The panels and grids change from page to page every time, but still remain fluid. Nicola Scott became a favorite artist of mine over the New 52, and one really awesome feature early on here is the renderings and imagery of Metropolis, some of the very best. All the supporting characters looked good, and Superman looks like, well, Superman. As for the dialogue, there is a whole hell of a lot to take in. From the Volume 1 books, this one contains one of the biggest scripts, and it holds true to how this young and untrusted Superman wanted to be heard. Perry, Sam Lane, Jimmy all sounded like their usual selves, while Lois would change personalities from writer to writer, and any other side characters came off just sounding average. For the plot, it is what it is. Trying to introduce a new Superman, but not really, all while having to stay within the confines of the early Action comics. George Perez had many editorial disputes because of that, and he did what he could to deliver a cut-and-dry story that was quite Daily Planet central, with that crew rounding out the cast, complete with the Great Caesar's Ghost catchphrase said at one point. The whole Morgan Edge, Galaxy Inc. Daily Planet revamp was used for early shock value only and had no real impact, but the book's foes and mystery as to where they came from was good and understandable. I don't want to kick Superman while being down from this opening story, but things did get a bit boring at times, plus the overused hatred for the character was not done well, especially since so many other heroes, powerful ones, get zero suspicion. Then there's Lois. In early Action comics, she was astute, always on the go, and determined, while here, barely 5 years later, she seems tired, way less mature than she appears, and don't get me started on her figuring out Clark is Superman, because it went nowhere and seemed to be forgotten. If you've watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for Demon Knights Volume 1.